Alright, what's up everybody? We're back with another edition of Everyday Hoops. Hope you guys are having a good one. Today's video, we're going to be talking about the NBA season. We have 1 week left. This is the final week of NBA regular season basketball. And we're going to talk about what to prepare for this upcoming week. What battles in terms of standings and playoff and play-in races we have to look out for. All the stuff like that here in today's video. Thank you guys for the views on the videos and the shorts recently. I really appreciate it. If you do like the content around here, consider subscribing, like, turn notifications, do all stuff like that. I'd really appreciate it. Really upset a lot. Join the membership if you want to learn more about the membership. This video on my channel explaining it, so you can go back and watch that. Links to my Twitter, TikTok, stuff like that in the description down below. And yeah, don't waste any more of your time. Let's get right into it. So let's start out East, because after yesterday's games, the East is a lot more complicated. And through the entirety of the NBA season, it's just crazy to see that we're in April, we're in the last week of the season, and we still have so much left to play for. Usually by this point, we kind of understand, all right, this team's going to be in this spot, these teams are going to be in these spots. We kind of understand what it's going to be like. It's just the little things here and there that we got to fine tune. But at this point, like, we still have, like, in both conferences, only like 2 or 3 teams have clinched playoff spots. You know, like, we still have so much pieces left of the puzzle that we don't know about yet. At this point, it just shows how I'm saying the season is, how good teams are now, and just, yeah, shows how crazy the NBA is right now. So we'll start out East, because well, Boston's number one. They're number one. They have the best record. We don't even have to talk about them. But it's 2 through honestly 8 that gets very crazy, especially after last night's games and how teams been playing recently in that stretch. The Milwaukee Bucks are still holding on to the number 2 spot, but they have lost 4 games in a row. They lost to the Knicks last night, and before that, they lost 3 games that they should not have lost 3 in a row. They lost to the Wizards, they lost to the Grizzlies, and they lost to the Raptors. 3 lottery teams, back to back to back nights, and then last night they lose to Jalen Brunson and the Knicks. So they're just desperately holding on to that number 2. You know, fortunately, the Cavaliers, who are number 3, couldn't take over the number 2 spot, even though the Bucks have been struggling. And now they're only a game above the number 3 or 4 spot. Like a game and a half above 5. So the Bucks, I think they already clinched a spot. They're not going to be in the play-in, but they're still trying to hold on to the number 2 seed right now. And the Bucks, their schedule left, they have the hardest schedule left in the NBA this last week. This last week they have to play Boston, OKC, and they play Orlando twice. They play all 4 top teams in the league. So they're really going to have to watch out. And speaking of Orlando, they're right there at number 3 now. The Magic have been balling out recently. They have jumped up to the number 3 spot in the East. They're tied with the Knicks, but they have the tiebreaker over the Knicks. So they're number 3. And again, only a game behind Milwaukee for the number 2 spot, which is insane to think. The Orlando Magic could be the number 2 seed in the East. Orlando, they don't have an easy schedule left either. They play the Bucks twice. They also play Philly, and they play Houston. So Orlando has a little bit of a tougher schedule left, but they have a really much likely chance to finish in the top 4 in the East. But then again, only a game and a half above 5th, and only a game and a half. I'm sorry, only a half game above 5th, a game and a half above 6th. So they still got to win their games, but it's just insane to see Orlando this high. And then you have New York at number 4. They're also 46 and 32. They're number 4. They're tied with Orlando, but Orlando has a tiebreaker. And yeah, the Knicks have been playing a lot better recently. Jalen Brunson has been on fire. Donte DiVincenzo, they've been getting some really, really good wins. They're still at number 4, trying to get to 3 or even 2. Just in case a second round matchup against Celtics team or whatever, they might can avoid that. Maybe get to Milwaukee or maybe get to Orlando in the second round or whatever. Who knows? But right now the Knicks, their last games left, they play Boston, but then they also play Brooklyn and they play Chicago twice. So they have 3 easy games, even though they did lose to Chicago on Friday. But 2 more times against Chicago, they should get at least one of those games. And Brooklyn, you can easily win that game. Boston's going to be the real one right there. And then you have the Cavaliers. The Cavaliers have been really struggling recently. They've lost 3 in a row. They've dropped all the way down to 5 in the East. They got a win taken away from them last night by Paul George, who put on an absolute masterclass in that fourth quarter. And they have dropped to 46 and 33, now a half game behind Orlando and New York for the number 3 or 4 spot, and only a game above Indiana for 6, and only 2 games out of the play-in, which is insane because honestly we kind of thought Cleveland was kind of okay. They're going to be in the top 3 or whatever, but now they have dropped, and now they're not that far out from missing the play-in or being in the play-in, which would be crazy to think about like a month ago. The good thing about it for Cleveland is they have 3 games left, and they have one of the easiest schedules left. They still play Indiana, which is going to be a huge game. But then they also play Charlotte and Memphis, which are not. Memphis is not an easy win, but it's better than playing a lot of other teams. And they also play Charlotte, who they did lose to actually like a week or two ago. So maybe it's not as easy as it seems. But, you know, the schedule is on their side. So maybe Cleveland could get a couple wins and maybe get up to that top four seed, because they look like they're going to be a lock maybe to have a home court advantage in the first round. And now it looks like, you know, they're going to have to face a Knicks team again, or maybe Orlando or whatever. But yeah, 2 through 5 is very close. And honestly, we thought kind of the 2 through 4, 2 through 5 was where it kind of was at. But now that the playing teams in the East are starting to win, it's not that, you know, it's not that safe anymore either. The Indiana Pacers are 6th. They're 45 and 34. They're only a game out of 5th place, and they're only 2.5 games out of number 2. The Indiana Pacers are only 2.5 games out of the number 2 seed. And the thing about Indiana is they have an easy schedule. They play that Cleveland game, but then they also play Atlanta and Toronto. Combine that with Milwaukee having a hard 4 games left, Orlando having a tougher 4 games left, New York has a top 10 hardest schedule left, Cleveland has been struggling. Like, Indiana really has a chance if they win at least 2, or maybe if they can win all 3 of these games. You know, they have a real shot of maybe getting a top 4 seed and getting home court in the first round. You know, like, they really brought back in this, which is crazy. And then we get to but they're also only a game out ahead of the play-in, so they gotta win at least 2 or 3 games, I feel like, to kind of be safe from the play-in. But you also have the Philadelphia 76ers who are back. Joel Embiid is back. They have won 5 games in a row. They're 44 and 35. And they're only a game outside of 6, which means they don't have to play in the play, and that means Joel Embiid can rest an extra day or 2. You know, Philly, their last couple games left, they have the easiest schedule left in the NBA. Well, tied for the easiest with Chicago. But Philly has the easiest schedule left. They play Orlando, they play Detroit, and they play Brooklyn. So the Orlando game, of course, is going to be big, but if you could take care of business in Detroit and Brooklyn, then they easily should win at least 46 games, which at this point would put them at 6, but it also depends on what other teams do, because Orlando, New York, and Cleveland also all have 46 wins, so it's going to be a little bit tougher, but they got to win, and they just got to hope that Cleveland or Indiana or them have a struggle in their last week. And then you also have Miami at number 8. They're 43 and 35. They're a half game behind Philly for 7th, and a game and a half out of 6th place. Miami has really been struggling. They've been on and off, and their games left, they have 4 games left. They play Dallas, then they also play Toronto twice, and they play Atlanta. So again, they have an easier schedule on their side. It's going to be a little bit tougher, of course, because the other teams' schedule and stuff like that. Honestly, if I had to take a guess, it looks like Miami is probably going to be locked in for the play-in eventually. When they're just kind of fighting with Philly for home court in that first play-in game. But the Eastern Conference, yeah, it's crazy. I mean, the difference between the 2 seed and number 8 seed is 4 games. You know, like, that's crazy to think about. And then you have the battle for 9-10, I guess, in the East, Chicago and Atlanta. Chicago has a game lead on Atlanta for that 9-10 spot for home court in that 9-10 play-in game, I guess, which matters because it's going to be a play-in game, but does it really matter? Not really. And then you go to the West. And the West is still as crazy as the Western Conference has been the entirety of the year. Right now, we still have a battle for the number 1 seed. Minnesota and Denver are tied for the 1 seed. They're both 54 and 24. Minnesota does have the tiebreaker in that one, and they play each other one more time. Denver and Minnesota play each other one more time, which is going to be a huge game. Looking at for Minnesota's schedule, they have 4 games. They have Denver, they have Phoenix, but then they also have Washington and Atlanta, and they've been playing a lot better. And we got news earlier today that Karl-Anthony Towns might be back before the playoffs, so he might come back this week and play. Maybe. That would be a huge help. And then for Denver, they have one of the easier schedules left. They play Minnesota, but then they also play San Antonio, Memphis, and Utah once. So they have an easier schedule left. So the schedule strength goes to Denver, but Minnesota might have Karl-Anthony Towns back, which would be huge, and that's a battle. And then OKC is still there. OKC, they were on a 3-game losing streak. Shea and J-Dub have not been able to play recently, but they got a big win against the Hornets last night, which was a really close game. Charlotte honestly probably should have won that game. But OKC still only a game behind those two as well. We don't know the status on Shea or J-Dub yet, but if they do come back, that's going to make it even tougher. OKC does have a little bit of a tougher schedule left. They play Dallas, Milwaukee, Sacramento, and then they play San Antonio, which is not an easy win. So OKC has a tougher schedule left. Right now, it looks like they're going to be kind of locked into a 3 spot, but then again, they're only a game behind. So this last week is, I mean, we still don't know who. Like, this is what I'm saying. In the Western Conference, we still don't know who's going to be the top 3 seeds. We know who they're going to be, but we just don't know the order, which is crazy in the last week of the season. And then after that, you have a gap, and you have the Clippers, who had been really struggling, but they've won 3 games in a row. They got a big win over the Cavaliers last night. They're at 50 wins, and now they're kind of looking like they're going to lock into that 4 seed. There's 3 games behind OKC, and they're 2 games above Dallas for the 5th seed. So it looks like the Clippers are going to kind of be locked into the 4 unless they lose bad the last couple games. Which their last 4 games they play Phoenix twice, which are going to be huge games for both teams. They also play Utah and Houston. So the Clippers look like they're going to be at 4, and then the Dallas Mavericks at number 5. That was just an electric win last night against the Houston Rockets. So what a game that was. They've won 3 in a row, and now they're at 5. They're 2 games behind the Clippers for 4, and they're 2 games above the play-in. So as long as they can stay kind of cool this last week, they should be locked into a top 6 seed. And I think I saw yesterday said the odds are most likely that we're going to get a Clipper Maverick first round again for the 3rd time in 5 years. Dallas's last couple games, they play OKC, they play Minnesota, they play Detroit, and they play Charlotte. So one of the easier schedules left as well. And if they take care of business against at least 2 of these 3 teams, I think they should be good. And then you have the play-in mess at 6 through 10. Right now the Suns and Pelicans are tied for 6 and 7. They played last night. The Pelicans got the win, but the Suns still have the tiebreaker. So the Suns are sitting at 6. Pelicans are 7. The Suns, they were hot. They were on a couple-game win streak until last night's loss, and they have one of the hardest schedules left in basketball. Just like I said with Milwaukee, they have 4 tough teams left. The Suns still have 4 Western Conference playoff teams left. The Suns play Minnesota, the Clippers twice, and Sacramento, which all those games kind of are must-wins. And all those teams are still going to be competing as well, so those are going to be really hard games for the Phoenix Suns. They're going to have to win a couple of those games to try to avoid the play-in. And then the New Orleans Pelicans. Pelicans, honestly, I kind of thought, if you would have talked to me about this last week or the week before, I would have said Pelicans are going to be a lock to be top 6. They're playing at an amazing level. They're hitting their shot at the right time. Teams like the Suns and Kings were kind of on the other end, and I thought the Pelicans were locked into that top 6 seed. But they won a 4-game losing streak, and now all of a sudden they find themselves at 7 in the play-in. Their games left, they play Sacramento, they play the Lakers, they play the Warriors, and they play the Blazers. So they have they're going to have some all these games are must-win games, especially against 3 teams that you're competing with, to be in the play-in with. So those are going to be huge, huge games. But yeah, the Suns-Pelicans matchup, was very big last night. And Suns still have the tiebreaker, and it's going to be really tough for both those teams. And then you have Sacramento. They're at 8. They're only a game behind the 6 and 7 seed. They have a harder schedule left as well. They play OKC, Phoenix, New Orleans, and they play Portland. So those Kings-Suns, Kings-Pelicans games are going to be huge. But then you also have the Lakers, who play New Orleans as well. So those games right there are going to be must-watch. Must-watch. Speaking of the Lakers, they're right there, sitting at 9. They were 8 yesterday, but then they lost to Minnesota without LeBron and AD only playing 12 minutes. The Lakers are a half game behind the Kings for the 8th seed. They're a game and a half behind 6th. And their games left, they play New Orleans, they play the Warriors, and they play the Grizzlies. And then you have the Golden State Warriors. At the last 10 seed, they clinched their 10th spot with the Rockets losing last night. The Warriors are number 10. They're a game and a half out of 9th and 3 games out of 6. So it looks like they're going to be probably locked into a play-in scenario, pending, them winning all their games, or Phoenix and New Orleans or something, going on a big losing streak or whatever. But the Warriors look like they're going to be locked into the play-in. Their games left, they play New Orleans, they play the Lakers, they play Portland, and they play Utah. So yeah, these Western Conference games, especially a lot of them playing each other, like Lakers, Pelicans, Kings, Suns, Pelicans, Kings, all those games are going to be just, again, must-watch TV. But yeah, this last week of the season, got a lot to be looking forward to. It's going to be some amazing basketball, and teams are going to be fighting for, they're fighting for their seeding. And it's going to be really, really fun to watch, and I cannot wait for it. But yeah, it's going to be it for today. Hope you guys enjoyed. Once again, enjoyed the content around here. Consider subscribing, turn notifications, do all stuff like that. I'd really appreciate it. Really upset a lot. Join the membership. And yeah, I'll see you guys tomorrow.